Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 13 must-start and must-sit quarterbacks and tight ends. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so. Cool graphics going to fly on the screen right now at NotoriousFantasy. We're going to be talking about a sponsor, BetMGM, a little bit later. They have a great offer for you. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 13 must start and must sit quarterbacks and tight ends. We begin with my first must-start quarterback of the week, and that is Magic Mike White, quarterback of the New York Jumbo Jets, going up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota this week. Last week, in week number 12, up against a bad Chicago Bears defense, Mike White ended up having a very solid game, finishing the week as the quarterback number 6, having 22 completions on 28 attempts for 315 yards and 3 touchdowns, as well as 3 rushes for 2 yards. Now, some people will be very quick to say that that was a fluke, that Mike White cannot do it again because, oh, the Bears defense is so bad. It's no shock that Mike White could have done that, right? Well, the Vikings are the 27th ranked pass defense via DVOA. So it's not like Mike White went from going up against the Chicago Bears from 2022 to going up against the Chicago Bears defense in 1985, right? That's not what's happening. He's going from one of the worst defenses in the NFL against the pass to a team that also pretty much sucks ass at defending the pass. So I really do have very strong beliefs in Mike White. I really do think Mike White could have a fantastic performance in back-to-back games. Again, the game environment up against the Vikings could be a very high-scoring tit-for-tat affair. Even though the Jets do have a good defense, the Minnesota Vikings have an excellent offense. So maybe this could end up being a very high-scoring game, and I'm extremely interested to see in what Mike White does in his second start for the Jets, and this really is his job to lose, so I expect a very solid showing up against the Vikings. Again, their defense ranks 27th against the pass via DVOA. Next up, we move to Deshaun Watson, quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, going up against the Houston Texans in Houston. The Texans defense ranks 24th in pass DVOA. Now, last week, the Houston Texans got their back blown out by the Miami Dolphins. They were up 30-0 at half, and then they benched Tua basically right at the beginning of the third quarter. And my biggest worry about this game for Deshaun Watson is not really the rust factor. Now, while it is entirely possible that Deshaun Watson comes out there and is a little bit rusty, I don't think that's going to be the case because I think he's been practicing this whole time. Now, obviously, he hasn't been practicing with the team, but he's training with his trainers. He even talked about it in his press conference yesterday prior to this game up against the Texans that he has been training. So I don't think there's going to be a rust factor. I think there are two things that could come into play that could completely derail what might be a humongous game out of Deshaun Watson in his return up against his former team. The first thing that I think could go wrong is that he might think of this game as bigger than it actually is. He might make this out to be a huge revenge game that he has to lay the hammer down on the Texans, and then maybe he makes the game out to be too big and he starts making stupid fucking decisions. He starts throwing the ball into windows that are too tight, and then boom, it's picked off. And he's so worried that, oh, if I don't show up against the Texans, what are people going to think about me? This, that, and the other thing, right? Maybe that's what happens. The other worry for me is that the same thing happens with the Dolphins as it does with the Browns, where the Dolphins come out, start the game off, Tua throws 1 touchdown, and then they kind of just cakewalk their way through the game. Like, maybe Watson throws a touchdown in the first quarter, maybe he throws 2 touchdowns, and then after that, we just see 9-inch Nicholas Chubb run the ball 7,000 times. And again, I fully understand that Deshaun Watson is risky, but ultimately, he is one of the best top 10 quarterbacks to be starting on the week. I know there's risk there, but I am labeling Deshaun Watson as a must-start because this matchup is amazing. Now we begin with my must-start tight ends, headlined by Foster Moreau, tight end of the, turn your volume down, the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the LA Chargers at home in Viva Las Vegas. Week 12 up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Tight end number 9 on the week, having 3 receptions on 7 targets for 33 yards and a touchdown. And he has been relatively hit or miss this season. I'm just keeping it honest with you. We've seen some big games out of Moreau, some other games where he's taken a nap, but with Waller out, as well as with Hunter Renfrow out, the upside is obviously there for Moreau, especially in the red zone, and the fact that they're playing up against the LA Chargers in what should be a very high-scoring game because the Raiders have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, if not the worst defense in the NFL. They rank 32nd against the pass and pass DVOA, and the Chargers don't have a great defense either, so this game has all the makings of being one of those games where, hey, maybe 50-plus points are scored, and maybe Foster Moreau is able to find the end zone multiple times. Again, it is all about the matchup here, and this matchup is fantastic for Foster Moreau. Next up, we move to number 4 here. My number 4 must-start quarterback and tight end, and that is the other tight end in this game, Gerald Everett of the LA Chargers, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Week 12 at Arizona. Tight end 19 in Gerald Everett's comeback game in half PPR, going 4 for 4 like he was at Wendy's for 18 yards. And again, I'm trying to keep things 100% transparent. We haven't seen a big game out of Everett since week number 4 against the Houston Texans. Very unlikely that Mike Williams plays, and this is an incredibly positive matchup for Everett. Again, the Raiders rank 32nd against the pass in DVOA. So this should be an incredibly easy matchup for Justin Herbert the pervert and Derek Carr to go tit for tat in a high-scoring game. Again, I'm not saying Gerald Everett is the safest option. He's not like wrapping a fucking condom around your fantasy football roster, but what he does give is a crazy amount of upside. Before we move on into my must-sit quarterbacks and tight ends, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends, our sponsor over at BetMGM. Now, if you're a brand new user to BetMGM and click on the link in the video description down below or in the pinned comment, you will receive this offer, which is if you bet $10 on any pregame moneyline World Cup game, you will receive $200 in free bets as long as another goal is scored in the World Cup, which is guaranteed to happen. So your game could be a draw. Nothing could happen. You could lose your bet, but you will still receive your $200 in free bets because, again, it is guaranteed that someone scores a goal in the World Cup. I'm going to throw it onto the screen right now. You are just going to select whatever team you want. For this example, obviously you have to scroll to the top of the screen. After you sign up, click on soccer, and then we are just going to bet on whatever the biggest favorite is. We're going to bet on that $10, and then we receive our $200 in free bets. Again, whether this bet wins or lose, it is guaranteed that another goal is going to be scored in the World Cup, so you will get your $200 in free bets. Also important to note, this offer only lasts until Sunday. Today is Friday if you're watching it on the day it's released, so it's not going to last forever, so make sure you guys take advantage of it right now before it disappears. Back on into things, we move to the must-sit headlined by quarterback Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers going up against the Chicago Bears in Chicago. Week 12 at Philadelphia, Aaron Rodgers does get banged up, so I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers was absolutely dust in that game because he didn't look the worst. Quarterback 30, 11 completions on 16 attempts, did throw 2 dumb interceptions, 140 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers is dealing with a fucked up thumb as well as a rib injury. And again, the Bears have an absolutely abysmally bad defense. They rank 31st against the pass according to DVOA, but frankly, I just don't think Rodgers can get it done with all of these injuries. And I think it is also entirely possible, while Aaron Rodgers owns the Chicago Bears organization, as he has said in the past, it is entirely possible that Rodgers gets knocked out of this game. Now, again, I'm not saying that the Bears are going to fucking headhunt them like they're the Saints back in the day, but I do think that it is entirely possible that Rodgers plays just bad in the first half and is like, fuck this, my thumb hurts, my rib hurts, I'm out. Now, again, that's not guaranteed to happen. Maybe Aaron Rodgers goes out there and he's perfectly fine. He's 100% healthy. He fucking slices and dices his way through the Bears defense. But honestly, I don't really see that happening. At number 2, we got Taylor Heineke, quarterback of the Commanders, going up against the New York Football Giants in New York, but it's actually in New Jersey because it's in MetLife. Week 12 versus Atlanta. Quarterback 25 in a very positive matchup. 14 completions on 23 attempts for 2 touchdowns and an interception, 1 rush for -1 rushing yards. Now, Heineke came out the gate once Wentz got hurt on fucking fire. He had a solid first 3 games. but his last 3 games have been a completely different story. He has failed in the last 3 games to eclipse over 12 fantasy points. And again, there's always going to be upside with Heinicke because he makes these crazy ass plays. I talk about this all the time where he's willing to do a fucking 360, run to the left, run to the right, like kind of like what we saw Mac Jones do last night. But instead of sailing it to Devontae Parker, who was out of bounds, he throws it to Terry McLaurin, who's in quadruple coverage. Sometimes that's a touchdown. Sometimes it's a pick 6. And that's just the game you're playing with Taylor Heinicke. The Giants defense ranks 28th in pass DVOA. But again, I really do feel like this, I've talked about this a lot on the week over on the Notorious Fantasy by Stokastic channel, that I think this game, since it's an NFC beast rivalry, it kind of reeks of a lower scoring game. And I just don't see Heinicke or Daniel Jones getting it done. Now we move to the tight end position, beginning with Robert Tonyan, Big Bob Tonyan, tight end of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the Chicago Bears in Chicago. Week 12 at Philadelphia, tight end 27.5 PPR, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 20 yards. He hasn't scored over 10.5 PPR points since last season, I guess, because he hasn't fucking done it this season. Has not done it this season. And Romeo Doubs, however the fuck you pronounce this guy's last name, may return this week, even further limiting Mr. Limited Robert Tonyan's upside. Again, I love the player. I love the matchup. But the problem is, things just have not been great in Green Bay for Big Bob Tonyan. Final tight end to discuss in today's video, and final player to discuss in today's video, must-sit tight end Taysom Hill of the Saints, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay on primetime Monday Night Football. Week 12 at San Francisco, tight end 36.5 PPR, tied with my boy Lawrence Cager of the Giants. 1 reception on 2 targets for 7 yards, 6 rushes for 13 yards. He hasn't scored over 10.5 PPR points since week 5. Again, it's week number 13 now, and has only scored over 10.5 PPR points twice this season. I talk about this every single week with Taysom Hill. He gets enough opportunities. The problem is, if he doesn't find his way into the end zone twice in the game, then he's just going to leave you dead in the fucking water. So, and again, this is a tough matchup against the Bucs. I don't really see the Saints coming out here on fucking fire and throwing up 27 points, right? 21 points, where Hill really has the upside to score multiple touchdowns. That's just kind of how I see things. I understand that some people might want to start Taysom Hill because, oh, the upside is so high, this, that, and the other thing, and I get that. But again, this just does not seem like the matchup where Taysom Hill has a huge boom game. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Again, if you did end up enjoying today's video, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Make sure you check out our sponsor, BetMGM, and get bet $10 on any pregame World Cup money line. $10 on that, and you receive $200 in free bets as long as another goal is scored during the World Cup, which again is guaranteed to happen. I love you guys all so much. Hope you all have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy!